Hey guys and girls, Bored now, back with you on this video. I will be talking about The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 9. It is the finale of the season. It is called Look for the Light. Full spoilers from the start of this review, just in case you haven't seen the episode yet. I'm a little late getting to it, so chances are you probably have, but just warning you in case. So, really solid, really strong season finale, as this show, or the first season of it, has been like really consistent all the way through. And for me, it's a shorter episode, and in some ways maybe not quite what I was expecting, but it definitely delivered. It was really satisfying emotionally, and the way they leave off with Joel and Ellie, if this is the last we see of them, I'm not quite sure if they'll be back for series 2 or not, but it feels like it could be the sort of situation where we might be leaving them, or maybe they'll be revisited. We might just drop in on them season 2, but whatever the case, it felt like a satisfying way to wrap up their story if that is the end of it for the TV series. So the episode is bookended with Marlene appearing once again, who we haven't seen since the opening episode, I want to say, or maybe the second episode, whenever she first appeared. And in the end, she turned out to be a very murky, like light and dark character. And I would say in this finale, she took on a darker turn than I was expecting. But there's definitely some meaty stuff going on with her in this finale. So we open up with a flashback, and we see a pregnant woman who ends up being infected, and it turns out this woman is Anna, and it's Ellie's mother. So she's literally giving birth to Ellie when she's attacked and infected and is dying. And later on, Marlene and the Fireflies come upon her, and it's actually at Anna's request, because obviously she wants to make sure her newborn baby can have the best life, and wants her taken away from her for obvious reasons, because once she turns, she would kill her, and she insists Marlene takes Ellie, and that Marlene kills Anna, and it's worth noting Marlene is reluctant to do this, because later on in the episode it's very easy to see her as more of a villain, and there's certainly a lot of that in what we see with Marlene later on. But at this point in time, she's reluctant to do this, but she comes to the conclusion it is the best thing, and like Anna does have to persuade her, so it's not a decision she takes lightly. But that's a good little setup for the episode, and as I said, the start of a bookend, but just showing how Marlene came to take Ellie on and raise her. And we've obviously seen some stuff with that about how Ellie was raised. So in the present, Joel opens up to Ellie probably more than he's ever done, which is fitting since it's the finale. But he tells her a really harrowing story about how he almost committed suicide after his daughter Sarah was killed. So we're finally at the point where he can discuss such things with Ellie, and where I think, like, in many ways, you can't really replace someone's, like, daughter, especially when they was lost so tragically and so young. But certainly we're now at the point in the drama where Ellie has taken on the sort of, like, symbolic, almost daughter role of Joel, and he has become pretty much her father. So them having this sort of conversations makes a lot of sense. But the big drama of the episode is, as they get closer to where they're heading, Ellie is kidnapped by the Fireflies, and Joel is knocked unconscious. He ends up in hospital, where he finds out later what's happening. And what's happening is they're prepping Ellie for surgery. they want to perform an operation on her, which will help them find out if there's a cure, if they can use her for a cure, which there's been this speculating throughout the show that she does hold the cure. But it's a very risky surgery. Marlene is telling Joel this, and he is convinced she would die and doesn't want to take the chance, so he's demanding that Marlene puts a stop to it. Marlene refuses and has Joel taken away. So this is at the point of the episode where Marlene is really coming across as the villain, even though there are certain ideas, arguments to say that the Ellie should, if there is a cure, they need to develop it. But definitely kidnapping a young girl like this and forcing her into surgery is not the way to go about it. That's what makes her a full-blown villain. But as things go on and the stakes are raised and it's so tense, you do get more and more light and dark in this, in the divide, because certainly Joel doesn't always come across as the ultimate good guy in this, and that's typical of his character, where the stuff he's been through throughout the series has just led to him being ultimately more ruthless and aggressive than your stereotypical hero protagonist might be, which is something to be commended about the drama of this all. So they take him away. And that's where, once again, Ruthless Joel comes out, because he fights his way to freedom and he kills several fireflies, including the ones that surrender. So that's, once again, an example of what I'm talking about. He then kills the surgeon operating on Ellie because he refuses. So Ellie at this point is unconscious, so Joel takes her away. But of course, there's one last showdown he's got to have, and that's with Marlene. So once again, this is coming full circle and the bookend, and fitting that then it was Marlene who gave him Ellie in the first place to be with and to take on this journey. And this, you've had a fully fleshed journey now over 9 episodes. That's why everything that's going down in this episode just feels so meaty, so engaging, so tense and perfect. There's just so much riding on it. So you get this standoff with Marlene and Joel. And what's really interesting about what Marlene says in this scene is he says to Joel, it's not too late, we can still do the operation. And he insists Ellie would want this. And that's a really interesting line from Marlene, because later on in the episode, it's certainly a grey area over if that is true. You get the impression maybe Ellie would want this. Maybe she's willing to risk her life if it means they find a cure for other people and the virus can be contained and overcome. But Joel obviously isn't going to give in to that. He's there to protect Ellie. They've bonded, and he now thinks of her as a daughter, pretty much. So he's ruthless once again. He shoots Marlene down, shoots her several times and kills her. It's absolutely brutal. Ruthless once again, and he takes Ellie away. So they're driving away. Ellie wakes up in the car in the back seat, and Joel, being very diplomatic, maybe a little bit selfish, you could make that argument, but he tells a white lie. He's a pretty big lie, to be fair, but he tells Ellie that the fireflies, their look for a cure failed, that then it didn't pan out, so then they were free to leave. And later on, when they're hiking, Ellie insists, tell me what you said, the story about the fireflies, tell me it's true. And he once again lies. He says, yes, it's true. and she pauses and says okay, and that's pretty much the last sign of this series. And just a couple things to wrap up, which I love about this stuff with Ellie and Joel. Once again, it's hinted that then perhaps Ellie would be willing to sacrifice herself for the greater cause, like Marlene pointed out. Now, the thing about that is, even if Marlene's right, that's still not the point. She still went about it the wrong way, and went about it in a very malicious way, where she wasn't really giving Ellie the option of saying yes or no in the first place. So Marlene is still ultimately a villain in this episode, because she is like, even if she's got a kernel of truth, she's like using it in a very malicious way, and she's going about things completely the wrong way. Now, with Joel, it's very like murky once again, because anybody watching, like any parent or any adult in general, would understand why he does what he does, and why he's ultimately looking out for Ellie and protecting her. Like that is something I'm sold on, and he's got the best interest of her at heart in this final episode, even though like he does lie to her, like he tells her a blatant lie. And another thing I sort of got from the final scene was then Ellie seemed to know the truth, or seemed to know that he wasn't telling her the full truth. It just seemed obvious to her the way he was behaving, like he was quite awkward. So I think there is this interesting like character growth in Ellie, where she has been forced to grow up very fast. And as a result, I think she's now in a place to know that sometimes adults do lie for the good of children, for the greater good in that way. And I think she understands that in Joel. That's why she doesn't really press it, and it's a sign that he loves her. So to me, that's just the way I read that a little bit, is then I think deep down she knows that he's lying, but he's doing it for her own good. So she doesn't get upset, she doesn't press him on it. But once again, it's just a little bit murky, because he is lying, and maybe she would want that choice, but ultimately she was sort of forced into it anyway from the Fireflies, or that's what they were gonna do. So some very interesting like shades of light and dark with the characters in this episode, but another wonderful episode, a really strong finale, a great final scene with Ellie and Joel, and some great stuff throughout the season. So yeah, pretty much as perfect as modern TV gets is this first season of The Last of Us. I highly recommend it, and I'll be definitely rewatching this at some point. A strong contender for show of the year, really. There's some big shows returning soon, Yellow Jackets and Succession, but definitely for a new TV show, this is going to be up there for show of the year. So that's The Last of Us, the finale for season 1. Whenever we get season 2, I will return with reviews of that, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. Once again, share me out on social media. I mentioned both Yellow Jackets and Succession. I will be covering the new seasons of those when they hit later this week, or next week in the case of Succession. So Yellow Jackets season 2 and Succession the 4th season, the 4th and final season. I will be reviewing those on the channels. Me and Rachel McDonald also review Buffy the Vampire Slayer for something a bit more retro, so you can check out Buffy reviews on the channel if you're a fan of that show. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys again soon.